Okay.
Yes, sir. Start, sir.
Yes. So, good afternoon to all. I welcome all the participants to this parallel series of webinar on the bank audit. So, as of now, we have scheduled 4 lectures, Monday to Thursday, and we are also trying to finalize the speaker and the topic for Friday and Saturday. So, we have about 800 plus registration today, and of which 240, 45, 50 people have already joined in, and I'm sure people will join in the next few minutes as well. So with that, let me also Hitesh Pomal, Regional Council Member. He is also the Vikasa Chairman for WIRC and he is the Chairman of the Banking Committee. I should thank Hitesh Bhai for taking the effort to organize this bank audit program, identify the speaker and schedule it. I also welcome CA Niranjan Joshi, today's learned speaker. Now I hand over the charge to Hitesh Bhai to give his opening remarks and also welcome the speaker. Hitesh Bhai, over to you.
Thank you very much, Murtuza Bhai. Good afternoon, all the participants. This new financial year 2021 has begun with the unprecedented situation of lockdown in the nation due to COVID-19 pandemic worldwide. Had this not been the lockdown situation, I think by this time we would have started our bank branch audit for the year 1920, and most of us would have completed branches as well. However, due to this lockdown, the time limit for the completion of the bank branch is already extended by the regulators actually. As we all know the importance of homestay and to maintain the social distancing, at the same time it is very much important to utilize this opportunity to update our knowledge and sharpen our skills. To utilize this time which is available with us, WIRC has scheduled webinars every day from Monday to Saturday. And as a part of these webinars, from today onwards, we are starting the series on bank branch audit. Today's topic, as you all know, is audit planning and certification. And the topic will be addressed by none other CA Niranjan Joshi sir. CA Niranjan Joshi sir, as we all know him very well, he is a very well-known name in the area of banking and finance sector. He is a practicing chartered accountant since 1997. And he is also a DISA from ICAI. He has also completed the examination of IFRS course conducted by the ICAI. He has been the speaker in the training programs and seminars organized by Institute and all the 5 regional councils, various branches and various branches of the ICAI across all the India and various study circles of the Mumbai. He has been a trainer for DIRM courses as well of the ICAI and certificate course on bank branch concurrent audit of the banks of ICAI at various centers across the country. With this, I request CA Niranjan Joshi sir to address the members for the today's topic, audit planning and certificates. Thank you very much. Welcome Niranjan sir. Welcome. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Hitesh Bhai. As requested by Hitesh Bhai, I would like to start with a small presentation prepared by WIRC on Code of Ethics and have a look at it.
Thank you, Niranjan ji, for running the ethics video. And the credit for preparing this video goes to Vice Chairman of WRC, CA Vishal Doshi, and his team. And every month, WRC is committed to prepare a simple and beautiful video like this and circulate to all study circle branches so that it can be run before the program starts. Over to you, Niranjan ji.
Yeah, thanks, Murtaza, for adding that. In fact, if you are all aware, from 1st April 2020, the new rules of Code of Ethics have come in place. And I think this is an excellent initiative by WRC for bringing out such videos which would make us aware about what are the do's and don'ts for our profession. I think all of us should eagerly wait for the further updates on Code of Ethics from ICI. Now, at the outset, let me thank Hitesh Bhai and the entire WRC team for, first of all, arranging such kind of webinar, and also for giving me this opportunity to share some of my views about how to plan for the audit, how to keep documentation, and what care one should take while working out on certifications in the bank branch audit. I would take you through the presentation in next 1 hour 10 minutes or 1 hour 15 minutes. And as I was told by the organizers, there would be questions which would be taken at the end of my presentation. So let's start with the presentation. This year, as in the opening remarks, Hitesh Bhai told us, by the time when we actually would have been at the branches doing audit, we are sitting in our respective houses and trying to understand how one should go for audit. See, planning basically would require a lot of us to read whatever material is available to us in various forms. The objective of audit planning would be basically for all of us to check whether our audit would be in compliance with the regulators' guidelines. For us, ICI is a regulator. For banks, Reserve Bank of India is a regulator. So guidelines issued by both of these would be applicable for our audit. So we should be aware that these guidelines would be useful for us for planning the work. Terms of appointment. Obviously, this year there has been a delay, but once you get the appointment letter, there will be a lot of terms and conditions mentioned in that appointment letter, and those would be very useful for all of us while planning the work. Starting from, planning the beginning of the work at the branch, conclusion of the audit, all things needs to be planned according to the periphery as given in this terms of appointment. Accounting standards are applicable to the banks based on their financial statements of previous years. One can find out what set of accounting standards are being followed or not followed. Accordingly, a branch auditor also needs to understand that appropriate accounting standards as applicable to the branch are being applied and followed by the branch. Standards on auditing. Obviously, every type of statutory audit, the standards on auditing issued by ICAI are applicable to the statutory auditor. No difference with bank branch audit. So all the standards on auditing as issued by the ICAI effective as of date would be applicable to all the bank branch auditors. During our discussion, we would look at how we can effectively make use of these standards while planning the work so that the execution is smoother and we do not leave anything which we should have tested during the audit course, and also make sure that the appropriate gathering of documents and evidences would lead to effective reporting. Apart from this, there are a lot of other certificates which are required to be issued by the bank branch auditor, which goes to other than regulators, like other than RBI. Like some certificates go to the state government, some go to the central government, some goes to SIDBI, some goes to NABARD. Wherever an assistance is provided by all these agencies, all these certificates are part of the certification work. The biggest challenge in certification work is it is always expected that all set of certificates, including the financial returns, should be ready by the time auditor reaches the branch for audit. However, my experience says that by the time you start the work, most of the certificates are not even prepared. Sometimes it's happened so that after you conclude your audit, you get a phone call from the branch management asking you to issue a certificate. The challenge in certificate is that audit is a reasonable assurance, whereas the certificates in the present form as prescribed by the management of the bank to the statutory auditors are in the nature of absolute assurance. The difference between two is, in case of a reasonable assurance, you have a shelter, or you can very well say that my audit is based on a test check basis. So there is a fair chance that something which I have not tested may be a material misstatement. However, in case of an absolute assurance, ideally, expectation is that you should verify true and fair instead of true and correct view. We'll discuss about ICAI guideline issued in 2016 about guidance note on issuance of special purpose reports and certificate, and how one can plan the work of certificates, execute it, and effectively make use of that guidance note on issuance of certificates in this bank branch audit activity. Effective reporting, obviously, the most and important objective of entire activity of bank statutory audit is that my entire efforts taken by the branch audit team should be reflected in the audit report. And that's where I would say that if we plan the things properly, if we document the things properly, if you appropriately bring out the deficiencies right at appropriate places in various reports, then only that report would be effective. So to that extent, in the planning stage, I would give you some tips about how we can ensure that after the execution is completed, the entire efforts convert into effective reporting. Most importantly, completion of work in time. Those who are experienced auditors would understand that the entire planning activity is important only to achieve this particular target. A lot of banks give dates of 10th or 15th of April. This year, obviously, as Hitesh Bhai in his opening remarks have said, it's already extended beyond the routine deadlines. But still, I believe that once this lockdown situation improves and the government allows us to move out of our houses, I think there would be again a lot of pressure on bank branches as well as bank branch auditors to complete this bank branch audit activity in time. So we'll go through a small process how we can achieve it in time. The basic planning work should start with, the guidance note on audit of banks. As you are aware, ICAI through Auditing and Assurance Board every year updates this guidance note on audit of banks for all of us who do bank branch audit. Expectation is that once you get it on your desktops, or if you get a soft copy on your mobiles, or you buy a book, you must read that and then follow that. The expectations are already given in detail with a chapters specifically marked for auditors of branches, specifically marked separately for auditors at central level. A guidance note also includes the latest RBI circulars, I think up to the month of February. A guidance note also briefly gives an idea about how an audit approach should be for various types of activities which are carried out at the branches. So I think this is the kind of one document which would help us to go through the entire bank audit exercise. So it is a must document. Whenever you get a chance, have a look at what is new. If you have already gone through the previous guidance note versions, if you haven't been to, at least my request to all would be at least look at the basic areas which are appearing in the trial balance of your branch, and then at least those areas try to take some clue from this guidance note about what activities one should carry out during this bank branch audit activity. Further, RBI circulars also play an important role in understanding why or how some transactions take place at the branch, and naturally it will be important for all the auditors also to know what kind of circulars being issued by RBI till now and how they impact us. Obviously, one can download these circulars from rbi.org.in. From this 1st April 2019 to 31/3/2020, total 276 circulars are issued by RBI and they are listed, they are made available. This is how the index to RBI circular looks like. So the circular number with date of issue, the department, subject, and it is meant for whom would give you an idea about whether this particular circular applies to a particular area which would be useful for us to download and understand for our audit. One can really look into. Again, the challenge is those who are youngsters who are doing for the first time or second time this bank branch audit activity, it would be really difficult for them to go through all these 276 certificates to find out which one is applicable and which one is not. My suggestion would be at least have a cursory look at all these circulars, identify if anything directly linked with advances, directly linked with KYC, directly linked with any other area which you would be considering as part of your audit area, and at least have a look at those circulars. The groundwork at office begins with this kind of a preliminary activities like gathering the previous year's working papers if you are continuing auditor in a bank. If you are appointed for the first time in this particular bank, then based on your earlier previous year's experience with different banks, you can maybe listing out certain basic things, checks and balances which one should carry out at bank branch audit. Normally, I suggest my team to start with, at least identifying the basic thrust areas. At present, since you all are aware, NPA is a major thrust area. Compliances is another area. Risk assessment to some extent with respect to every item appearing in the trial balance is another area. Due diligence has to be done once you reach the branch, but before that, you can very well understand how are the controls in the bank. Maker Shaker is a big control. Every transaction passes through 4 eyes in a bank. So obviously, evaluation of controls is something which should be planned well. Like say, for example, in case of cash verification, the control of cash chest or currency chest, which has to be with 2 different individuals, can be very well planned, put into the audit program, and a guide can be provided or guidance can be provided to the audit team about how to evaluate such controls. Credit monitoring, credit supervision is another area which can be planned, like whether there are enough controls. Like say, for example, in case of working capital limits, submission of monthly information or quarterly information, submission of stock statement is a good control to understand whether the limits are being given to a particular borrower are being justified. Based on this, one can prepare an audit program. Usually, every year, WRC comes out with a publication about handbook on audit, bank audit. Last year's handbook had a very good, very crisp bank branch audit program. This year, the guidance note 2020 issued by ICAI also in the appendix has a very good bank branch audit program. I think we can start with it. One thing one has to remember, these ready-made programs, ready-made checklists are illustrative in nature. One should use them to identify that at least these are the minimum areas one should cover, and further, based on your own experience, based on the audit complexities or business complexities involved at the branch where you get a chance to do audit, you may modify this audit program suiting to your requirements. Overall time and manpower planning, again, it should be from day one should plan that which partner would be doing which branch, what would be the team size, depending on obviously the size of branch based on total advances, total deposits, total employees, total volume of business handled other than these, and then one can plan that the target date which we accept while accepting this appointment letter has to be achieved. So enough manpower has to be put into place. The overall plan schedule would be workable, then only one can start the work in time and conclude the work in time. Considering which kind of bank you are auditing, you should check what is respective applicable act for your bank, and also make sure that you understand the audit requirement under that particular act. Like Banking Companies Acquisition and Transfer of Undertakings Act is the act which would be applicable for nationalized banks. For State Bank, the State Bank of India Act would be applicable. Once you receive the appointment letter, go through the terms and conditions and issue an acceptance letter if you are capable to accept that assignment. Once you accept that assignment, kindly write a NOC to the previous auditor. Wait for that NOC to come from that previous auditor. Once you accept that NOC is being received, then you can further plan for the work. Generally, the banks nowadays pass on the closing manual through the soft copy to the auditors. So have a look at that closing manual. Verify the instructions which are given to the auditors, because most of the banks are now following e-submission of various reports, various returns. Some of them even digitally require you to sign certain statements online. So verify at least the portion which is meant for auditors. That is number one. Number two, also have a closer look at what kind of closing adjustment vouchers are required to be passed as suggested by the closing manual. Number three, verify what kind of records are generated in the report folder which would be printed and required to be signed by the branch auditors. So make use of this closing manual and make sure that you plan for the entire audit activity with respect to signing of these returns. Issue an audit engagement letter. Again, that's a good practice we should follow. Provided all the information required for your audit is provided to you, you can very well achieve the timelines as expected by the management. Audit engagement letter is one such letter which you can issue, wherein you can mention this fact prominently, expecting all of them to make sure that it is primary responsibility of the branch management to give information, documents, papers, reports, returns, certificates ready for the audit, and then only the auditor can complete the audit. Obtain basic information from the branch. Generally, one can write a quick email or maybe a letter asking the branch management to keep certain things ready, like various reports of auditors, like statutory audit of previous year, maybe inspection report if there is any. If concurrent audit is being posted at the branch, you can obtain that concurrent audit report. If the branch is covered under RBI inspection, you can ask for that information. Also verify the compliances being asked during that information. Ask for the status of number of accounts, number of borrowers, advances, deposits, whatever information you feel like. Again, a very nice document was made available last year about what kind of basic information we should obtain by WRC in the WRC audit booklet. Also, the guidance note 2020 gives you about the basic information we should ask from the branch. Prepare audit program checklist. Wherever you find fit, you can use audit program. Wherever further you want to do some detailed checking about a particular item, you may have a specific checklist for a particular type of assignment which you have to carry out. Study RBI circulars, attend trainings, webinars like what we all are doing today, have knowledge of what's happening, current affairs. Also, have a basic look at standards on auditing. The standards on auditing obviously helps all of us to understand what are expected, what are the expectations from all of us by the standards. SA 200 basically talks about basic principles governing audit. So substance over form, materiality, all this concept test check will cover under this. SA 230 audit documentation. I think this is the standard most of us follow in total, but we forget to document a lot of things. SA 500 audit evidence, SA 400 risk assessment, SA 300 audit planning, SA 220 quality control for audit work, SA 299 joint audit of financial statements. Here one has to remember that as a joint auditor, we are doing a branch audit, and based on our audit, the central auditors of a bank would form a view. Most of the times when we interact with the branch auditors, we get one feeling that the branch auditor has it in mind, saying like, who looks at my reports? Who looks at branch audit reports? Mind it, the first and the foremost reader of all the work which a bank branch auditor does is the central auditor of that particular bank, who is consolidating that particular region or that particular zone. So make sure that you take all the efforts of doing this particular activity should convert into most effective reporting, so that the first reader, who is your central auditor of that particular bank, would get the maximum out of your efforts. SA 310 knowledge of business, SA 600 using work of another auditor, knowledge about CAT tools. Practically this happens only when data has been exchanged with the auditors. My personal experience is it's very difficult for this current system to give data to the branch auditor. So naturally, what data we get is the report folder, and that report folder we can use through any of the CAT tools to analyze the results and then plan for the work. All these standards, again, if you go through the ICAI website, they provide one-page checklist for each standard. If you start using the standard checklist for these standards, you will realize that they are not a burden on auditors, but they really facilitate the smooth functioning of the auditors. Like say, for example, knowledge of business. Most of the times, we know about the business carried out at the branch where we get a chance to do audit. But we do not enough document it, because this SA 310, the one-page checklist, if we do for the knowledge of business of that particular branch, it would be documented. So whatever standards we have to follow, I think SA 230 is the standard which we should target the most. Rest all, my experience is we follow almost all standards, but we do not enough document our testing according to these standards. So my humble request to you all would be, please follow audit documentation carefully. Have knowledge of what's happening in the various aspects of what's happening in economy, what's happening in general in banking industry. What are the government policies? Are they impacting business? Are they impacting the bank business directly, indirectly? Rules and regulations applicable to the sectors, products handled by the bank, how complex they are, applicability of accounting standards, auditing assurance standards, and FEDI guidelines if it is a forex branch. Again, as you all are aware, last couple of years have not been that great when it comes to economy. The financial market as well as the industrial market, it's not growing at the pace which is expected. In last 15 days, we have faced a situation where it has certainly impacted the economy. Obviously, as an auditor, we should be aware that these are the changes which are happening, and this would certainly impact the total business scenario in India. And obviously, once these businesses are impacted, obviously the banks also would be directly impacted. Now the question comes is, like, if economy is in trouble, if the lockdown kind of a situation is faced by most of the businesses for the first time, and the business operations are not happening, obviously it would have certainly a negative impact on the financial side of these businesses, and naturally those would also impact on the status of borrower accounts in the bank. Similarly, on 27th of March, RBI has come out with a circular allowing 3 months of deferment of interest and installment in case of loans is only to tackle anything due from 1st of March. So obviously, as an auditor, we should be aware that the last month or so, wherever we would look into the accounts being operated under the loans and advances portfolio or working capital would certainly would have a negative impact on the entire portfolio. Similarly, the financial markets have also substantially eroded. You all are aware that the value of rupee has also against the other currencies have been devaluated. So all this would impact into your financials when it comes to audit, and one should be aware of at least basics about these changes. In the audit program, define broadly the scope of audit, especially for youngsters who are doing for the first time this bank branch audit activity. My request to you all would be, please go through the audit program as suggested by guidance note on bank audit 2020 and make sure that you understand each and every line item prescribed there. Those who are seniors, who are experienced auditors, my humble request to you all would be, undoubtedly you have a lot of experience of dealing in bank branch audit. However, since this time you have got a little more time to start the audit, you can utilize this time by going through this revised guidance note 2020 and check whether all the areas which you normally carry out an audit are being covered in that audit program. If yes, that's perfectly all right. If not, then you may synchronize with at least whatever best suggested practice would be. As suggested in the beginning, certificates is something where the area has been neglected by the branch as well as the branch auditor at the beginning. My request to you all would be, in the basic audit program, along with checking of various other things which you mentioned there, checking of certificates has to be also part of this main audit program. Identify the thrust areas. Obviously, couple of thrust areas could be forex, could be loans and advances, could be IRAC compliance, NPA, income recognition, comparative for income, expenditure, provisions at the year end. All this could be the thrust areas. You can very well also go through the concurrent audit reports wherever available, identify the risk prone areas, and you can further go on adding those thrust areas. Set maturity levels for each area. Again, maturity is something which has to be judgmental based on the business complexities at the branch, based on size of advances, deposits at the branch, one can set a maturity. Lay overall time schedule. Again, it's an important factor. In last 15 years, we have been pushing our audit teams to complete the work and to conclude the work in time. Obviously, almost all banks are listed, so naturally they have a time schedule. Thankfully, this time the SEBI has already extended the timelines by 30 days. I hope the things get smoothened and we get good enough time in our hands. But still, make sure that whatever deadlines are being suggested by the appointment letter, we have to take care that we follow those deadlines. Training to audit staff and spatial skills if required. Again, a big challenge to all of us. Number one challenge is that very few of us are fortunate that our previous year audit team is also there with us in this year. Those who really have this luxury, I think they should share that trick to continue with the team for such a long time. Rest of all of chartered accountants have a typical problem that we can't really afford to retain the quality talent. The challenge is the proprietor or the partner who is the auditing partner for that particular branch is the only individual who is consistently and continually doing this particular bank audit activity, and rest all the staff is always a new team which does this audit for this particular year. Also, the bank branch statutory audit, I always tell in such interactions, is like a annual ritual. Every year we have a new year on 1st January. We have Diwali somewhere in October, November. Something similar in the month of April, we have bank audit. So what happens is, in the month of February, in the month of March, when we get the appointment letter, we feel like we are bank branch auditors. And by the time 10th of April or 15th of April, we sign that particular bank branch audit. That becomes the end for the activity. I imagine there has been a lot of changes which comes across. Like in the beginning, we discussed about around 276 RBI circulars have been issued. Guidance Note 2020 has given a different set of approaches towards audit for each type of area. Entire skill set has to be understood, and for that you need a fantastic team. Now, if you do not have a team which is experienced enough, never mind. What you can do is, whatever you get through such kind of discussions, like today we are attending a webinar, or you have a material called bank branch audit guidance note, or you have a WIC material like bank audit compilation of papers, you can use that and start training your team members for a particular activity. My suggestion would be the training of audit staff could start from long form audit report. I think somebody else would take webinar on long form audit report. You can wait till that time. But LFAR covers almost all the points which a bank branch auditor has to cover. It can act as a basic audit program, and one can really make use of long form audit report to train the team members. But I think you should train your team members to such efforts so that they can work as if you are working at the branch. Whenever I talk to my team members and staff members who are part of bank audit team, I give them example of the game called chess. I hope all of us know the game of chess, and the pawns which are the shelter to the entire ammunition for the king and the queen. I think once they reach the 8th position, they get themselves converted into a queen. The training to audit staff makes them at least capable of handling this complex businesses as if you would have tested that. Obviously, your experience will certainly matter in this. Previous year's experiences, you can identify the weak areas, like wherever you have difficulties. Like the first weak area comes to my mind quickly is wherever you have been passing MOCs in last previous years. The first thing comes to my mind is non-reversal of interest in case of account which is classified as NPA. Number two could be income recognition in case of account which is classified as NPA during the quarters by some other auditor or by the bank themselves, but interest is still continued. Small things, but these are the weak areas where you pass, or asset classification for that matter. Many a times, irrespective of objective criteria, an auditor will have to pass an MOC, and based on that MOC, the account is classified as NPA. So that is also a weak area you can identify, and you may plan for it. Apart from that, go through the LFAR and other requirements, and you may find out certain other important areas which you should put into audit program, like physical verification of cash, other sensitive accounts, control accounts, frauds accounts, sundry assets, suspense, which are called fraud prone areas, branch reconciliation, branch adjustment accounts, contingent liabilities not acknowledged. Once you go to the branch, have a first-hand feel through various reports which are made available to you. like previous year's audited returns, previous year's concurrent audit report, internal inspection report, RBI inspection reports, other audit reports, review and compliance thereof. All these reports, friends, excellent for all of us to look into, but they are only effective if the compliance is actually verified by our team. So here for youngsters, I would give you one idea. This particular activity, when you go as a auditor or partner or proprietor, you should test. Ask the copy of all these returns, all these reports. Test at least 10 or 20 major items appearing into those reports where the branch had said that they have complied with that regulation. Like say, for example, in case of a CC account, stock statements not been obtained, and the concurrent auditor or the previous statutory auditor has made a comment about that particular A, B, and C audit, A, B, and C borrowers have not submitted stock statement since long time. The branch complies with answering that particular question or that particular remark, saying that being obtained, since obtained, being called for, being obtained, and they close the report. Each bank has its own policy to say whether this report has been complied or not. And for all these reports which are listed here, the compliance is generally done when some 80% or 75% questions are being answered by the branch. My request to you all would be, those who are seniors would agree with me, those who are experienced would agree with me, that at least pick up 10 large observations, 10 major observations of each of these reports. Like last year's statutory audit report, bank inspection report, internal inspection report, concurrent audit report, any report. Pick up 10 sample major observations, major irregularities, in front of which bank has mentioned, branch has mentioned that they have complied with this particular requirement. Once you do that, make sure that the compliance has been tested by your team with respect to actually testing how the compliance takes place. Like say, for example, there is a query of an auditor which says that insurance policy was expired, no insurance policy was renewed. The branch says it is being renewed since obtained. As a matter of fact, our audit team should be instructed to check whether actually there is a policy which is effective on that particular date, available and picked up by the branch and kept in the file. My experience is, especially in case of review, monitoring, and supervision in case of advances, you will find that lot of compliance is actually a no compliance. And subsequently, you may pick those up for testing for your various other testing of reports. There are various reports at the branch. Obviously, once you reach the branch, you can ask for what kind of audits have taken place. And then based on that, you may pick up those reports and have a look at what kind of queries being raised by those auditors, how they are being addressed by the branch, and check whether the compliance is actually a compliance for the same. For execution of work, obviously, materiality is a major issue. Analytical procedures is another tool which is provided by SA 520, which will help you to understand whether the comparatives or whether the percentages gives you something which may prop up into your audit program. Sampling as a unique technique, one has to decide sampling based on rational thinking, based on the complexities at the branch, based on what kind of audit team size you have, and based on at least what minimum percentage of compliance requirement is expected of you. Say, for example, in case of advances, one may look at least 50 to 75% of coverage of advances in the basic testing. Wherever you find further flaws, lacunas, deficiencies, you may further drill down and go for substantive testing of that particular type of advances. Analyze and evaluate the errors in sample, get the rectifications and MOCs passed. If that evaluation of sample you're not satisfied, go back to the audit plan, something like professional skepticism given in SA 200. Till the time you are satisfied that you may give an opinion on those financial statements, abridged financial statements, you may. Whatever rectifications are to be done, they are to be done by passing a memorandum of changes entry at the branch. Now, once you set the maturity level, below the threshold of maturity, you have an option to get the rectification vouchers passed at the branch without issuing a memorandum of change, as it will not be a material thing for your true and fair view comment. In case of other MOCs which are above your maturity threshold limits, obviously an accounting entry needs to be passed for adjusting that rectification of that entry, and MOC is the only option provided. In the past, come across some cases where auditor believes that, okay, if I am not passing an MOC, I can write something in the long form audit report. My request to you all would be, especially those who are going to do audit for the first time, please remember carefully, all these reports are mutually exclusive. The statutory auditor issues various statements, reports, certificates, but somebody who reads it, may it be the central auditor of that particular bank, may it be the management, they all read it in piecemeal. So may not be possible for them to look at, MOCs being effected into long form audit report. So my request to you all, kindly, wherever you feel that audit adjustments needs to be carried out, it has to be carried out through MOCs and not in any other manner. Addition to giving an MOC, you may write a detailed note about what kind of MOCs you have given in long form audit report. That's perfectly all right. But not passing an MOC and giving a reference for the rectification entry to be passed in other reports is not acceptable. Work as per audit program and the time schedules. Prepare reports according to requirements. Qualify in audit report if you feel so. SA 700, 701, 705, 706, all those, make use of it. Sometimes, I get a feedback from the branch auditor that, the printing is done by the management, pre-printed formats are provided, the software doesn't give enough space for auditors to write. Obviously, you can overcome by issuing separate reports in addition to what you do as per the stationery being provided by the management. Audit trail is a big challenge. Obviously, those who have more than 20 years of experience, they would have understood the transformation which has taken place in the banks from manual register records to core banking solution. Obviously, in case of manual registers and records, the evidence or the documents were visible, so audit trail was available, and one may go back to that ledger account and test those whatever want to test. However, in core banking solution, whenever you ask for something, either you get a response from the management saying that the CBS does everything. Number two, the CBS doesn't throw such reports. They're self-contradictory, but still we get these replies from the branch management. Now the question is very simple. If there is a core banking solution, which is almost on the basis of the manual records and accounts which were followed by the banks, naturally it should throw all the things which were there in manual. Only the challenge to auditors is that we do not have sufficient knowledge about core banking solution system, so we lack of knowledge or lack of information about that. We do not ask for information. Obviously, lack of audit trail is a major hindrance. Lack of knowledge, lack of adequate information. Make sure that entire trail is available to you during the audit. If it is not made available, certainly it is your responsibility to check that whether you get that particular information in either of the formats. One of our friends had shared this kind of a sheet with me, and I promptly bring it as part of audit trail sheet. Audit trail in today's time is such that it is like the impression of that pug marks. Till the time somebody enters into the CBS system, there is a transaction trail available. Once it is done, then it vanishes somewhere deep inside the database. So number one, use of a report folder is something which you can test for this audit trail. Irrespective of that, wherever possible, my request to you all would be, the management still maintains lot of registers, manuals. Use that to effectiveness of your audit. Something which I always suggest my team to be part of audit plan, especially when respect to testing of loans and advances. In audit, when somebody visits a branch and verifies a lot of things, including loans and advances, my experience is, at least 50% of our time is utilized towards verification of advances and, IRAC norms NPA testing. So why not to just include, some early warning signals, which would help us to check whether there are controls established and they are effectively being maintained at the branches. Now, these 45 early warning signals should be part of our audit program, and they should be made available to my audit team at any point of time. Obviously, it starts with default in payments, defaults in bouncing of checks, raids by income tax, sales tax, frequent change in scope of under insurance or over insurance, invoices devoid of TAN and other details. Dispute on title of collateral security, so many things, it's all wonderfully listed. There's RBI circular in 2016 which has listed all these early warning signals. My request to you all would be, you can make a small checklist for these early warning signals and give that to the branch management and ask them whether they have acted upon something which has come across as early warning signal in case of advances. Like say, for example, delay in payment of outstanding debts, financing of the unit far away, claims not acknowledged as debt or higher, frequent invocation of bank guarantees and LCs, funding of the interest by sanctioning facilities, some collateral charge to number of banks, number of lenders, concealment of vital documents, floating front, associate companies, reduction in stake of promoters, so on and so forth. Total 45, just have a look at them. Just give a list to them. Ask the management that have they come across any borrower account which has triggered anything out of these 45 early warning signals. If yes, how the bank management has ensured that they are being rectified or they are being mitigated by the management. One should make sure that they add this as a part of verification checklist for loans and advances. ICAI has also issued a specific guidance on early warning signals. However, that would be too long for to look into. But as an auditor, especially branch statutory auditor, we should at least be aware that these are the 45 early warning signals. So any of the observation out of your particular verification of loan account or a borrower account identifies anything out of this 45, you must ask the branch management that this is an early warning signal. We could identify it based on papers available. Kindly explain how you have mitigated them. Most important factor which normally is ignored while considering the reporting requirements is the statutory audit report. 700 talks about unmodified report. 701 talks about key audit matters. Unmodified report is generally pre-printed and made available to all of us. So naturally, we all are aware that this is the type of audit we are going to use. Now that pre-printed is something where you are not qualifying anything, then you will use it. But if you are qualifying something, you may not use it. In case of a qualification, now you will be required to issue a modified audit report, and that modified audit report is prescribed under 705. That modification is not pre-printed, readily available in the stationery provided by the bank branch. So wherever you feel like you have a qualification in an audit report, it has to go in SS 705. Similarly, there is no modification required, but you want to make an emphasis of matter paragraph or another matter paragraph in your audit report, then SS 706 should be used. Those who are auditing a bank as a whole may require to look into SS 720 requirements, because the other information given along with audit report, like something like in an annual report where your audit report is printed, like if you are an auditor central statutory auditor of a public sector bank, a signing auditor of a private sector bank or a cooperative bank. SS 720 is also something which you should look into and check whether the information which is published in that annual report is made available to the auditors. If yes, then there is a format prescribed. If not, then there is a format prescribed. So kindly make use of SS 700 series. Now coming to SS 701, there has been a lot of debate going on since last year that whether SS 701 is applicable to the bank branch auditors or not. Ideally speaking, at present, the SS 701 format is not being utilized for the bank branch audit report. But to my mind, key audit matters are also derived from the bank branch auditor's observations. So some of the banks last year, the central statutory auditors requested or instructed the branch auditors to share with them any key audit matter they would like to highlight. My request to you all, wherever such demand has come from the main consolidating auditor, I think wherever you find that you have come across any key audit matter, you should pass on to the higher management, the central auditors. Generally, the statutory audit report is addressed to the central auditors because they would consolidate and issue a consolidated report. Compliance with standards is also to be maintained. Qualifications, if any, can be through MOC. As a part of our guidance note 2020, there is a standard format of SS 700. Unmodified report is prescribed. In that, the point number 11 is added as memorandum of changes. We can use that format. At the time of planning stage only, try to explain your team members about how to write an MOC. Generally, this is the format in which MOCs are summarized. Make sure that your team is aware that these are the 8 heads under which there could be a memorandum of change. One is income, second is expenditure, third is asset, fourth is liabilities, fifth is gross NPA, sixth is provision, seventh is classification, eighth is risk-weighted assets for Basel compliance, and last is other items which is not covered under this. And then you may appropriately write the account number, account code, GL code, whatever number based on which a particular account needs to be increased or decreased. Some of the banks have debit and credit as a format, but by and large, most of the banks follow increase and decrease. So make sure that memorandum of changes are being explained to the team quite nicely. Once you visit the branch and wherever you find observations of your team which would require memorandum of changes, my request to you all would be, at least before issuing that memorandum of change, have a look at it, have a discussion with the branch management, and then issue the memorandum of change. As I said in the beginning, long form audit report is also an effective audit program because it's an internal control evaluation questionnaire, comprehensive in scope and coverage. It covers almost all the areas required under balance sheet and profit and loss account at the branch. And it's really an important checklist for an audit plan that at least these are the basic 6 sections under which one may conclude the entire audit activity. Mind it, again, it is not an exhaustive audit checklist, but at least it is the basic to start with. So all youngsters can look at long form audit report as a basic questionnaire to test their bank audit plan. While doing LFAR as an audit approach, one should read all the questions in long form audit report. Each section is prescribing certain type of question, and accordingly one may plan for doing an audit. Say for example, the first question in long form audit report talks about cash and cash management. Now one can really look into LFAR as an audit approach, then they can plan for that audit activity of that cash. Number 1, verification, physical verification. Number 2, verification of the 12 odd date certificate which we have to give for non-SLR requirement. Then we have to verify whether the controls are in place that the management of cash is in the joint custody. And third, in case of cash balances which are over and above substantially than the limits prescribed. Now, when we plan for this, we may define an audit approach. Like say, for example, in case of this cash verification, one can go on the date when you visit the branch and do a surprise cash verification. So that could be an audit approach. Surprise verification will also give you an idea about whether actually the cash balance appearing in the general ledger is actually the physical cash balance. Number two, one may go through the cash docket, which is even today maintained manually, or one may go through the ledger account of general ledger of cash, whereby identifying what was the closing balance at the branch on all the days in the bank, compare that with the total limits available with the branch, and then decide in how many number of days the branch has exceeded the cash retention limit. Those dates where they have exceeded the limit, one can define materiality and decide that anything above 10% we would report as substantially over and above the limit sanctioned. For custody of cash, whether it's really a joint custody or held by one individual is purely a matter of observation. While opening the branch, if you are available, you may have a silent walkthrough near that particular currency chest at the branch to observe whether there are two different individuals who are operating that particular chest, or there is only one individual who is operating. If you find that there are two individuals who are operating it, naturally, you may write in your long form audit report that the cash is being made in joint custody as observed by us during our visit at the branch. Now, this is what a simple example I give. One can elaborate that further as LFAR guide as an audit approach in the audit plan stage. Plan and design the audit program to cover at least all the areas covered by LFAR. Prepare separate checklist for each point reported. Like say, for example, there is one question on, balances appearing in other assets. We call it sensitive accounts or fraud prone accounts, whereby an aging is required to be given as part of an annexure to long form audit report. One can make a small checklist for testing that which GL account you would test for this, how would you go for the aging, and what would be above a certain level of aging, how would you report. Most important part of all this would be the recording of extent of checking and sample selected. Say, for example, the fifth question in long form audit report under section 2 talks about advances under the assets. And that advances, the life cycle of advances is covered starting from credit appraisal till review monitoring supervision. Now, every time if you can list out that, okay, out of 200 borrower accounts at the branch, we have verified 25 borrower accounts, a list of which as sample selected is given as annexure 1, so that the entire audit, the coverage of particular types of loans, particular type of advances is being listed, so that your audit sample is known to the reader. That's where the extent of checking. Something similar to like if you are answering a question about cash, you may talk about how many number of days you have verified the cash or something like that. So recording that extent of checking and reporting that to some extent wherever required in the long form audit report should be planned properly. Most importantly, proper documentation, collecting sufficient and appropriate audit evidence is the key. Write descriptive answers, avoid yes, no, not applicable. Now they are in sync with each other, right? If I have a proper documentation, if I've collected enough evidence which would convert into an audit observation or a query or an audit report part or a para, then obviously as an auditor, I would be inclined to write a detailed narrative answer. If I do not do proper documentation and if I do not have sufficient audit evidence to supplement my observations, I would move towards not writing a descriptive answer. My humble request to you all is the basic approach or the plan is to make an effective report. Once you execute the work, the best out of your efforts has to come out of in the report form, and that's the reason my humble request to you all is plan for writing effective answers, and please avoid yes, no, or not applicable as answers. Wherever possible, try to include facts and figures and examples for all the answers in that question, and for that you can plan the things in advance as we discussed about particular cash account. Observation resulting in adjustment, as I said, has to go through MOC. discuss the contents of the report with the management. Your team should be aware that once the partner or the proprietor, the boss, clears an MOC, then the MOC has to be effected and the number of MOCs passed has to be reported appropriately in the audit working papers as well as in audit reports. I always suggest my team that since it's an activity carried out at the branch, all your observations, all the contents of report, please discuss it with the management. Inform the management in advance that this is the format in which we would request you to give a management representation letter, and mind it that the MRL is received, then only the audit reports would be issued. LFR is independent, as I said, so obviously no cross-referencing. Each qualification, each modification, each MOC has to be separately brought out in the main audit report. You may give an addition to that, your background, your observation, detailed analysis of that into LFR, but no cross-referencing. Various certificates like branch returns, audit reports, memorandum of changes, long form audit report, tax audit report, so on and so forth. So in the beginning, audit is a reasonable assurance. Audit certificate is an absolute assurance. The current format suggests so. Further, there is a requirement of UDIN. So let me be clear at the beginning itself that all the certificates issued by a particular branch auditor for a bank branch audit may carry only one UDIN number. That's what the ICAI had suggested us last time. So I think as of now, there is no change. So you can create one UDIN for one particular branch. Now, since that UDIN you will have to record in every certificate which is pre-printed and expected from the management. You may also verify all these certificates and make sure that you write down that UDIN number onto all these certificates. Let's go through some of these certificates quickly, where I have to request you all to be more careful, more extra cautious from planning stage, so that you can conclude that certificate in time. Take example of this various branch returns, audit reports, MOCs, LFAR, tax audit reports. Till this, I think most of us are comfortable because we do such kind of activity day in, day out for other clients as well. LFAR is a typical bank audit flair. So obviously, you can go through the LFAR and prepare for it. Jilani Ghosh certificate, obviously, it's 1996 onwards. These two certificates came until 1999. And since then, we have been writing this certificate. Most importantly, they are for the fraud prevention mechanism utilized from the two committees which were formed under the names which are given to those certificates. Practically, as a branch auditor, when you visit the branch and you are there for 3 to 5 days or 10 days or 15 days, you may observe on those 15 days maximum about whether various things which are expected to be answered by the branch and also to be certified by the auditor out of these two certificates. So ICAI has issued a guidance note where a covering page for this Jilani Ghosh certificate, kind of a negative assurance that nothing has come to our knowledge which causes us to believe that there is a non-compliance with these certificates during the period of under audit has been given. My request to you all, for such certificates, you may also use a structured inquiry with the management, starting with the first question and that till the end. Ask the management to give you enough information, enough documents, enough evidence to prove that the answers yes is in compliance with 100% compliance. Answer implemented in any of these questions is a compliance or implementation to the full. If you do not get information, my request to you all, kindly ask the management to modify those answers there. Various other certificates which also include certificate for Basel, DICGC claims, PMRY, any other government scheme, service tax, GST, cash balance, investments, agriculture, debt relief, subventions, so on and so forth. Typical example like capital adequacy. Whenever I get a chance to interact with branch auditors, the first thing I hear from them about capital adequacy is that what is Basel III? It is for the central auditors to discuss. But my humble request to you all would be, whatever the central auditors, the statutory central auditors do is based on whatever comes from the branch auditors. Now, at least my request to you all, and at least the first timers, the freshers, the youngsters, young friends, please make sure that at least you have a look at the certificate which is prepared by the branch. More than 75% of the information from that certificate you can pick up from your general ledger account. They are the balances representing as on 31st March at the year end. Go through the RBI circular, you can get the risk weights appropriately to be put into against those particular account heads. In those two activities, you cover 90% of your certificate. If you feel like something is to be done by somebody else, then ideally this certificate should not have been part of bank branch audit certificate. So again, my request to you all these certificates, if you plan it from day one of visiting branch and inform the branch management that, boss, look here, these are the certificates which we have to issue. If you keep it ready today, then only we will be able to audit it. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to complete the audit. Let's say, for example, interest subvention. If you have a branch where agriculture subvention, usually the list runs into number of pages, like 100 accounts, 200 accounts, 500 accounts. So obviously based on materiality concept and obviously based on test check basis, you would be compelled to look at certain percentage of test checking into it. But at present, none of these certificates give you an option to write what kind of percentage you have to cover under this. So my request to you all, wherever you get a chance, kindly look into the certificates format suggested by guidance note on issuance of reports and certificates for special purpose issued by ICAI in September 2006. Use disclaimers in the reports, certificates as Ghosh and Jilani certificates, as well as in guidance note on audit of banks 2019-2020 issued by ICAI. By incorporating a plan for audit, we can incorporate a plan for verification of certificates by writing about audit program to include certificates, decide the percentage of testing one would carry out on various certificates, verification of data, information, then mention the test check on certificates prepared as suggested by the guidance note, prepare documentation maintained by you, keep separate working file for the certificates, mention one UDIN for all certificates at the branch. I think that's what I had to cover. I think we have time for questions. Over to you, Hitesh Bhai.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Sir, we have a few of the questions from the participants actually. So I think it is
Are already
readable.
there on the slide. If you can see, Mishra ji has shared the slide. You can
Yes.
look at the question, Niranjan ji. Yes.
Yeah, he had just shared the slide. Okay. But in that slide, it starts with question number 2 directly. So 1 is missing. Anyways, Mishra ji, what's the first question?
First question, sir.
You can start with second, then let him see and come back.
Second.
Sir,
Yeah, the second question has come from some participant. For identification of weak area, can we refer to system audit reports of branch? Yes, you can report to, you can look at the system audit report at the branch. However, I'm not sure whether all system audit reports includes financial audit also. So wherever you have financial audit also part of system audit, where GL accounts, PL accounts, balancing is being tested. But apart from that, I think the concurrent audit report, the previous statutory audit report, and the internal inspection report are the 3 major reports you can rely while identifying the weak areas at the branch. Link for 1-page checklist. Yeah, essays, for all essays, there is a ICAI link. You can go through the committee for capacity building. and in that you will find all the checklists for all the standards. They are one-page standards for all. If not possible, I would request we'll note down this point, and I would give a link to Hitesh Bhai. And Hitesh Bhai, once all this is set right, we can issue that link to them.
Definitely,
Most
yes.
of most of the auditors have not replied to NOCs. I mean, a very good question. I think in that most of auditor, sometimes we are also part of it. So at least my request to you all would be that whoever writes for NOC to us, at least we will be responsible now henceforth to issue that MOC. In the revised code of ethics, the NOC could be sent in multiple ways, but earlier it was only registered post. So my request to you all would be, you can draft the NOC in such fashion that within reasonable time, if you do not send it back, it will be treated as NOCs. There are some formats provided, suggested. One may take the benefit of it. Fourth question is, fourth question is not so clear. In case where we obtain a response for a query, as this is system generated and done by the automated system, then how do we go about such queries? See, basically you have to understand, friends, that computer system, CBS, does nothing but accept data processing. The logic is derived from the basic banking. The core banking business is accepting deposits for lending, and that has not changed in so many years. Similarly, controls on every transactions like maker checker passing through 4 eyes is still the same. So it's really disgusting and pathetic from the bank branch point of view that when an auditor asks for a particular query, the management at the branch responds saying that this is system generated. But still, practically this happens. So my request to you all would be, wherever you get such a response, ask them to show you the system which generates this. Now, that is not possible, number one. Number two, if it is possible, then that naturally they would take you through the report folder, and in that report folder, you may find certain folders which would help you to identify. Say, I'll give you a small example which I tested a few years back. One of the branch auditors says that he was not getting information of interest products. So I casually suggested him that if the bank is suggesting you that yes, interest on loan is calculated by system and it is generated by system, and we are not aware of it, then go to somebody who does end of the day operation or day beginning operation, the system administrator at the branch. Ask that system administrator to give you all these prints or all these answers for what system generates. And to my surprise and to his surprise also, that branch auditor was given the entire product sheet. Now, those who have knowledge of system audit would be aware that almost all the major public sector banks, they are using the softwares which gives you a print or a soft copy of interest product. Only thing, the branch is not aware. So I would say that anybody who gets this response that it is system generated, either it is lack of information, lack of knowledge from the branch management, or in a lighter way, they don't want to give you that information. So obviously, a structured inquiry or innovative techniques of reaching out to the database administrator, system administrator, and getting the information is something very important. The next question is, if the borrower has not submitted a stock statement for more than 3 months and the branch has not classified as NPA, whether the intention of the branch is correct. Now, really difficult to talk about intention of the branch. But certainly, there is an error which is taking place at the branch, which you need to rectify by passing a memorandum of change entry saying that the gross NP has to be increased by adding this account as a temporary deficiency. Where can I get this list of early warning signals? Which RBI circular? Again, I think our presentation would give you keywords, early warning signals. Just you can search on any of the search engine, RBI circular on early warning signals, and you will get the circular. If not, you can go through the early warning signals booklet, which is also available downloadable free from ICAI website. There also you will find it. Also, Guidance Note 2020 has a reference of early warning signals RBI circular. So you will find it from any of these sources. Can you elaborate on Gilani and Ghosh certificates? Obviously, we have time constraint, hence will not be able to elaborate much. But if you understand that both these gentlemen were great bankers, and their committees were formed under Mr. Gilani and Mr. Ghosh to identify areas of weakness considering frauds in the financial markets in the late 90s and early 2000s. We have to understand that these committees provided a framework to RBI, expecting that these questions must be answered by the bank management in positive to take sufficient control, and that's what has been done by them. Yes, Hitesh bhai, shall we stop now, or shall we go ahead and take another question?
Sir, we have 5 more minutes actually.
Yeah, so I think we should.
Next we will send the answer through mail also.
Yeah, we can reply to them on mail, I think, because
Yes,
the
yes.
questions are increasing, you know.
Because we have the interaction meeting with the presidents and the vice presidents with
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Huh.
Yeah, so shall we conclude here, sir?
Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah.
Over to Murtuza bhai.
So thank you very much, WRC. Thank you very much, Hitesh bhai. Thank you very much, Murtuza. And thank you very much all the friends who have joined on this webinar for listening to me, and looking forward for interactions further like this. Thank you very much. Over to you, Murtuza bhai.
So, Niranjan ji, thank you very much. And 600 plus participants, and the questions are also, a lot of questions are coming. Definitely, this is a hot topic. So, what we have requested is Mishra ji will consolidate all the questions, we will mail it to you, and maybe you can answer them, and then we can circulate or load it on the WRC website.
Certainly.
So I would now again let me thank Hitesh bhai for organizing this bank audit series. Let me also thank the WRC staff, Mishra ji, Vaibhav, Subhash, Ravi Arora, and Seema, etc., for helping and supporting in this series. And let me now request the WRC Vice Chairman Vishal bhai to please conclude or give a vote of thanks. Vishal bhai, over to you. Vishal bhai. Hitesh bhai, may I request you to then do the vote of thanks, please?
Definitely.
Yeah, hello.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Sorry,
Vishal
bhai is on.
Vishal bhai, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Murtuza bhai and Hitesh bhai. At the outset, I would compliment Hitesh bhai and Murtuza bhai for coming out with this series with respect to bank branch audit, which all of us had missed out due to the lockdown and the institute's directives. But nothing is lost, and we have started this series of online interaction. And this was the first lecture today with respect to the bank branch audits. And it was ably justified by our speaker, CA Niranjan Joshi, on audit planning, documentation, and certification. Sir, I thank you for kickstarting this bank branch audit webinars in the right context. And just taking some aspects from your presentation, sir, that like you mentioned, that planning, definitely in the current situation where we are all faced under a very difficult task, planning becomes very, very important, because we have to do some out of the box thinking to ensure that the quality of audit does not suffer, as well as the timelines are adhered to. So that is where I feel audit planning in the current March 20 audits would be extremely important and relevant.
Absolutely.
So you also mentioned about key audit matters. I would just like to bring to the knowledge of all the participants that our WRC has recently published e-publication on the key audit matters and other matters with respect to audit reports. The publication with the search facilities is available online on the WRC website, And so let me inform all participants that we have covered 14 banks in that publication, and that should be a good referencer and a start point for the members to go through the audit matters and the other matters that the auditors normally report, and that would be very important and relevant for them. Another thing, sir, you mentioned is very important is to be interacting with the central auditors, because finally they would be the persons who would be using the reports and the certificates of the branch auditors. And the most important aspect was the management representation letter. So we have seen many cases where the branch auditors feel that the MRL is the responsibility of the central auditors and not of the branch auditors, and they overlook this very important documentation. So you have aptly covered it in your presentation, that the importance of MRL even as the branch auditor. And I would request all the members to ensure that in the audit documentation, right from the appointment letter, and it ends with the management representation letter. So thank you, sir, for covering all the important aspects with respect to the documentation. And thanks to all the members for actively participating in this webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
मिश्रा जी बंद कर दें. Okay, thank you. Bye. Hello. Thanks, boss. Thanks. Yeah.